Goeiemorgen. Good morning, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And there's clearly two sets of standards in South Africa. If you're white, you're in the minority group, watch out if you put a foot out of step. But if you are black and well connected, you can do what you like, regardless of the regulations. Well, let me give you an example of what we're talking about. We'll look at the two sides of the coin. Let's start off with what's happening to the wine farms in South Africa under this alcohol prohibition. Well, Francois Rousseau, the head of non-profit farmers network South African Agri Initiative, or SAI, which locks horns with Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma in court on August the 18th over the alcohol ban, said, "The Cape wine farms are like ghost towns right now. It's eerie. Until recently, these farms were bustling with international tourists. Now there's no one there. At this stage, about 90% of the family-owned farms face total ruin." This is the black economic transformation that Ramaphosa has been talking about. Bankrupt all the white businesses. SAI is representing about 120 family-owned wine farms, including names you'll know: Rust and Freda, Meerlust, Fairview, Bouchard Finlayson, La Motta, and Leopard's Leap. Many were struggling before COVID-19. President Cyril Ramaphosa's ban on alcohol sales for a second time on July the 12th tipped them over the brink. About 350,000 livelihoods are under threat if you think of the restaurants on the farms and the accommodation they provide. Yet this is a point which Dlamini-Zuma doesn't seem to consider in the 349 pages she filed in court last week, laying out evidence used in deciding on the ban. On Friday, Rousseau's organization filed a 170-page response pointing out the yawning holes in Dlamini-Zuma's argument. Well, that's not hard. Dlamini-Zuma has probably got an IQ of about 43, and the L factor long went missing. Yeah, the logic factor long went missing in action with Zuma, that's for sure. In his affidavit, Rousseau does not pull punches. Dlamini-Zuma, he says, made serious mistakes of fact, took the decision to ban alcohol based on unsound scientific data and hearsay, didn't listen to what the public had to say, and failed to consider less restrictive means. In particular, he says, the cooperative governance and traditional affairs minister laid out a case of the harm of alcohol in general, rather than the implications for South Africa's COVID-19 pandemic. "It is not the time to push an agenda against alcohol usage," said Rousseau. This lawsuit is just one of many the government is fighting against industries desperately trying to stay afloat amid one of the harshest lockdowns in the world. To be clear, no other country has implemented a blanket tobacco ban, and hardly anyone has banned booze. For a month, Sri Lanka tried it, as did parts of India, and one state in Greenland. Oh, and Lesotho and Eswatini, but a few other democracies would have ever dared to do this. For a sense of what this has done to South Africa's revenue, Bloomberg say that the 82 billion rand in lost tax revenue for the first 3.5 months of this fiscal year exceeds the amount South Africa borrowed from the International Monetary Fund and the African Development Bank. While the lockdown has eviscerated the economy, it has done wonders for three niches: booze and tobacco smugglers, those selling shelf companies to ANC-linked tenderpreneurs. Yeah, we're talking about the scam, the middleman, the well-connected, the ANC cadres, the black privileged, and of course Ace Magashula's family, and lawyers defending the ruling party's lockdown rules. It is why the Washington Post describes South Africa's lockdown as one of the most drastic interventions in the world, which has spawned a thriving network of illicit booze peddlers. The Post said, "It is truly shocking how much money people are willing to part with for alcohol." But Dlamini Zuma, in her affidavit, ignores the illicit sales. Instead, she devotes plenty of space to how, after alcohol was first banned in March, hospital trauma cases plunged. Rousseau says this reasoning is flawed. One cannot merely attribute the entire reduction in trauma cases to alcohol usage. During level 5, the bulk of South Africans were confined to their homes and very few cars were allowed on the roads. Would you, for example, argue that the drop in hijackings during the lockdown is also a consequence of the booze ban? It was a point made in the Washington Post by investment banker Matteo Landane, who said, "I'm like, no. The real reason for these decline in numbers is due to the fact there are less people on the roads." Now, it is clear that alcohol bans certainly have reduced trauma accidents in hospitals, but Dlamini Zuma fails to disaggregate the numbers sufficiently to show this intervention in people's lives, i.e., banning alcohol, is justified by the specific evidence. Interestingly, Dlamini Zuma claimed that she did consider less stringent measures. She just chose not to implement them. Experience has shown that less restrictions imposed during level 3, when COVID-19 cases were comparatively lower, were not as effective as an outright temporary prohibition, she says. Well, she never have put that sentence together. That was put together by her lawyers. Let's get that clear. Dlamini Zuma can't swing two words together. And she's actually setting the regulations for 50 million people in South Africa. You can't make this shit up. You really can't. The wine industry, which contributes 40 billion rand to South Africa's GDP and employs 300,000 people, has been counting the cost of her decision. Even though provinces like the Western Cape aren't seeing a spike in new infections, Dlamini Zuma argues it won't be practical to implement province-by-province restrictions. But Rousseau replies that the Constitution itself creates a system where alcohol sales are regulated on a provincial basis. He said, "The minister and her alleged experts were thus clearly ignorant of the Constitution and the structure imposed therein, or chose to ignore it. And this is another reason why the impunged regulations are constitutionally unsound." And while Dlamini Zuma says she threw the industry a bone by allowing wine exports, the farmer says this is scant help. Jean Engelbrecht, MD of Rust and Vrede, said Dlamini Zuma's argument is premised on a misunderstanding of the wine export industry. Exports were banned during the initial lockdown, which led to foreign customers cancelling orders. For example, says Engelbrecht, 100 Swedish state-owned stores cancelled their orders with his farm. Lost sales and lost shelf space cannot be won back in a normal business cycle and will remain lost for many years to come, he says. The upshot? Of 174 people who worked at Rust and Vrede before the lockdown, 108 are now out of work. It's not only the economics that don't support the government's case, it is a cognitive dissonance in bending over backwards to support the taxi industry by letting it carry full loads of passengers while sacrificing the wine industry. Well, there's a simple reason for that. Taxi industry run by black business people. The wine industry, yeah, you got it, run by white business people. This is part of black economic transformation that you're seeing in action right now. Dlamini Zuma will also struggle to uphold the ban, given that the doctors themselves are now arguing the ban should be lifted. On Friday, South African Medical Research Council President Professor Glenda Gray said on BDTV, "We have achieved what we needed, and now we need to address other issues. We achieved the lives. Now we need to look at livelihoods." On the same show, Professor Charles Parry, whose work was cited by Dlamini Zuma as justification for the ban, agreed. He said, "We now need to start looking at planning for lifting the temporary ban on alcohol sales." What's remarkable about Dlamini Zuma's court papers is that many of the studies she cites aren't even that helpful to her. Well, what do you expect? When you've got an IQ of 43, she doesn't even understand what's in those documents. She's just probably found them on the internet, printed them out, and thrown them into the pile. This woman is clueless, and she's friggin' running the country. Can you believe it? Apparently she's worth about 1.8 billion rand now. Get that, 1.8 billion rand. And she had nothing, diddly squat, before she met Zuma. That's an incredibly smart businesswoman with an IQ of 43. You join the dots. Okay, let's continue. For example, the Southern African Alcohol Policy Alliance lobbied Dlamini Zuma for stricter controls over alcohol, but it didn't ask for a complete ban. Another group of 78 academics also called for better control, but said none of the interventions are intended to restrict responsible alcohol use and social drinking. Dlamini Zuma would do well to go and read the judgment by Judge Hans Fabricius early on in the lockdown, when he took the army and police to task for the killing of Collins Koza. The population, said Fabricius, must be able to trust the government to impose rational rules. These should intrude upon the rights of people and their businesses, either not at all, or if they do, or justifiably must, the least restrictive measures must be sought. Dlamini Zuma, by her own admission, didn't do that. But as much as the skeptics might argue differently, South Africa isn't a command and control dictatorship, which is why her alcohol rules won't last much longer. So guys, that's what they're doing to white business. They're basically destroying the white economy. White monopoly capitalism, it's now becoming black privilege. Yeah. Now, I've shown you what they're doing to the people in the liquor industry in South Africa, okay, how they're destroying their businesses. Now, what about the ANC cadres and liquor? Now, remember that it's illegal to sell liquor at the moment. You can't travel with liquor. There's this huge stigma attached to liquor and making it illegal. But not for the ANC cadres. Oh, no. Not for the ANC cadres. This is where you have the other side of the coin I was talking about. Barely a month after recovering from COVID-19, a senior ANC KwaZulu-Natal leader is in hot water after she was seen in a video allegedly distributing alcohol to people who weren't even social distancing. Now, I'm going to show you that video in a second, but first of all, I want to add a bit of context to it. The video, which has been shared on social media, shows Umkanyakudi Municipal Chief Whip and ANC Far North Regional Executive Committee member Maniza Chantal Ngobo allegedly sharing alcohol. The video will be raised when the Far North Regional Executive Committee meets provincial ANC officials on Tuesday, Chairperson Ndotopethe Mtwetwe said. Ngobo recently shared her experience of testing positive for COVID-19 and her recovery with a local newspaper. In the video shared with Times Live by concerned ANC members, Ngobo, in pink, appears with a white plastic bag containing what appears to be bottles of expensive whiskey, which are quickly shared among a group of dancing women. Mtwetwe said the party leaders were made aware of the video on Sunday night. Mtwetwe said, "We have not met to discuss it, but we will raise it in a meeting tomorrow, Tuesday, with provincial officials. We were disappointed when we saw it," Mtwetwe said. Contacted by Times Live on Monday, Ngcobo first said she had no recollection of the incident or the video. She was probably too pissed. Times Live shared the video with her and asked her for her version of events. In response in Zulu, Ngcobo said that in the video she was at her family home on Saturday, where family members had performed a cleansing ceremony after her mother's death last month. She said, "The video was not taken with my permission. What's happening is that I am moving from a house within the yard and taking out food for my sisters." All right, guys, I'm going to leave it at that. But you can see that while the white community are basically honoring the lockdown, the ANC cadres, the black privileged, are just continuing as if nothing is happening. They are above the law. Here comes the video I was talking about, where you see her handing out these expensive bottles of whiskey. Please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Ring the bell for the updates. Please like this video. Please share this video. And above all, please stay safe. Bye for now.
Uma tá passando aqui com a supala. O pai de skate.